Welcome back to the Equip Business Coaching podcast series with David Beattie. I'm Terry Turon, and today we're discussing effective communication in real estate. David, how's it?
Fantastic. And you, Terry?
Yeah, like it. Thanks. Always good. Always good to chat to you and discover the intricacies of the real estate industry.
Awesome.
In a previous podcast, we discussed social media, CRMs, email, as forms of communication. And like I said, today we're discussing effective communication in real estate. What role does the effective communication play in the success of a real estate transaction?
Look, we're in the people business. We're in the service industry, and everything is about people. And what is the foundation of that? It's about communication. And one of the foundations of success in communication is building trust. And so successful and effective communication builds effective trust between parties. And when there's trust, there can be effective interactions between those parties.
So that's great. And we've discussed sort of time management and things like that as well. What are the common communication challenges real estate agents face? So you're sort of doing your thing, but all of a sudden you come across a challenge. How do they overcome them?
I think sometimes we don't listen carefully enough. We're focusing on what I'm saying as opposed to saying something which is what the client's actually wanting. And we as estate agents, our goal is to serve clients' needs and to meet their needs. And if we're not, first of all, listening and hearing those needs, then we're not going to communicate effectively. So communication, Terry, is more than just what I'm saying. Communication is saying things which is in the context of what the client actually needs. And sometimes I think we're not listening carefully enough to the nuances of how someone is communicating. It's not only verbally, it's also in tone, it's also non-verbally in the body language. So let's look carefully at all aspects of understanding clients and then being effective in not only hearing those client needs, but speaking to those client needs. So the client feels heard and feels understood.
So obviously, communication is important, but what are the best practices for communicating with clients to keep them informed and ultimately engaged through the buying or selling process?
So Terry, it starts with having an empathetic attitude. In other words, thinking and having a heart for the other person. Because as we have that heart for the other person, for the good of the other person, that's going to keep us attuned to the other party's needs. So whether it's a buyer or a seller, and even dealing with our conveyancing attorney or the bond originator and so forth. So let's start with a good heart. And second of all, is just creating some routines and building those expectations with the different parties. So in other words, with the buyer, I'm going to keep in touch with you every second day on the transaction process, or once a week, I'm going to give you a report, and then being consistent in delivering on that. And then I think just being available or getting back to clients. Now, I'm not saying being available 24/7. In fact, I would say the opposite. You don't have to always be immediately available. But I think what clients want is a sense of confidence that my agent is getting back to me. So just be consistent in actually reverting and being available or getting back to folk. And that will then help your process and your communication success.
It's strange you say that, because my next question was, we've got technology all around us, WhatsApp, Zoom, Teams, Google Chat, whatever. But how can real estate agents use technology to enhance their communication with clients and colleagues?
Look, I think WhatsApp is being amazing for us. So I think having a WhatsApp group between yourself and the buyer, so you can keep, if anything just happens, you can just put things in the group. You can even have a group between all the different parties involved, so that you can help with the transfer process or the handovers and so forth. So we've got fantastic communication channels and mediums to use. Emails for record keeping, for example. So you got, I would suggest voice notes to keep in touch in different times of the day or night. So we do have the tools. It's a question of just managing those tools effectively so that it doesn't take over our lives.
Now, here's an interesting one, because sometimes even in the most simplest transactions, things can get a bit sort of complicated. What are the effective strategies for communicating the complex real estate concepts and contracts to clients?
Yeah, my approach to business is not to be the expert on everything. So I create a network of experts. So I think having a trusted relationship, a partnership relationship with, for example, a great attorney, or for any legal issues, or a mortgage originator on call. I would say to the client, you know what, I don't have the exact answer for that, but let me get back to you shortly. I'm just going to talk to my partners, and let me get back to you on that technical query. I think being the answer ourselves is not necessarily the answer, but being the answer through the network that I have, I think is critical.
Okay, so putting the client aside for a second, you're chatting about your network and your trusted network. How can real estate agents effectively communicate with the other professionals involved in the transaction, such as the lenders, the inspectors, the attorneys, whoever?
So a partnership approach, I think, is critical. So I'm building a network of collaborators around me so that we as a collective can then provide the ultimate service for the buyer and the seller. So I like to build relationships up front with an attorney or two, with a mortgage originator or two. And my approach to them is very much a partnership approach. I'm here to benefit you, and you can benefit me. And so as opposed to I'm just using you, I tend to work out what's in it for the mortgage originator, what's in it for the attorney, and then I build that trust so that when I need the assistance and the collaboration, there is that foundation in order for me to get that support.
And then ultimately, the entire process is smoother and everyone's happier as a benefit of that, I would suggest.
Absolutely correct, yeah.
And so just to round up, we've chatted about communicating with people, clients and colleagues. Now, sometimes the thing that can sting, because we're all human, how can real estate agents use feedback and constructive criticism effectively to improve their communication skills?
Look, I think if we've got a learning attitude and a growth mindset, any criticism, we're going to take it not as criticism, but as what can I learn from it? And I think we should be constantly growing in our communication. It's a one skill which is foundational to the success of us as estate agents. And I'm always trying to learn what I can. So sometimes we often get very challenging clients, and quite often, if I may be so frank, the clients are difficult, and no matter what we do, those clients are going to be unhappy. But often those clients have a element of truth to what they're saying. So let me take the meat off the bones and learn those one or two things that the client's saying is true, and ignore the rest. And then over a period of time, my communication and my skills level around that will improve.
Absolutely. So this podcast has basically been touching on building personal networks, building trust with clients and colleagues, and ultimately improving your own skills through all those communication channels.
Absolutely. Our goal through this podcast, Terry, is to assist the agents and business owners that we work with to succeed more efficiently in their business. We want to see everyone succeed, and with the right attitude and right skills, we can do it.
Fantastic. David, once again, thanks for your time. You've all been listening to the Equip Business Coaching podcast series with David Beattie, and tune in for the next one. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Terry.